Peace in Islam. Let's get into some more of this illustrious history, put it on record. And another edict the king wrote, talk about the Christian king. You have been informed that if such Moors are Moors by nationality or origin, and if they teach Muslim doctrine or wage war against you or Indians who may have embraced the Muslim faith, you will not make them slaves by any means. On the contrary, you will endeavor to convert them or to persuade them by good and legitimate means to accept our holy Catholic faith. So that's the Spanish monarchs talking about the people in America at that time. On the conquest. The Spanish colonization of America was only an extension of the Reconquista, the reconquest of the Iberian Peninsula, which we know from the last few videos. Muslims ruled much of Spain for over 700 years, culturally, educationally, and economically dominating Europe. Early explorers were, in most cases, Spanish sailors who fought in Spain or Africa and sought to destroy the power of Islam by sailing overseas. They recognized the influence of Islam wherever they traveled and did everything in their power to convert people to Catholicism. When Hernan Cortes, conqueror of Mexico, came to the Yucatan, he called the area El Cairo. The Cortes and Juan Pizarro, conqueror of Peru, some of them who fought directly against the Muslims, called the Indian temples mezquitas, also called masjid in Spanish. Ironically, the first Christian to see American soil, Rodrigo de Tirana or Rodrigo de Lepe, became a Muslim on his return to Spain, rejecting his affiliation with Christianity, and Columbus did not want to give him credit. So you got this guy who beat Columbus, and everybody knew he did, but the fact that he come here and the Moors he turned out, convert him, he get play out of history. The importance of the current Duchess consists in her possession a luxurious library full of documents of 300, 400, or 500 years old. And we're gonna be looking at we're gonna look at one in particular today that I find interesting. Among them, documents of the Muslims of South America and the evidence of the Islamic existence in America about 400 years before Christopher Columbus. So some of her oldest records showing some of her oldest records, 400 to 500 years worth of records in her library. There's records between America and Spain at that time, which was Andalus. That's how she knew that. She expressed her fear to me that if she died, she was 70 years old, her documents would be at risk of being stolen and destroyed. She said that today's Christians in Spain cannot be trusted, as she said that to this day, historical documents that go against their stories with which they try to convince people continue to be burned. I said, why don't you write a book and include all the documents? And that was the first reason to write this book, Africa Princess America, a magnificent documented book. This book was published this month at the end of 2000. And essentially that it be translated into Arabic and other languages, as it is currently only in Spanish. And I translate in a lot of it, unless we will read something today. We basically read something every video. Just wanted to give you a background of what I read in this from this book. So adding to the rights to the sale price, those who pass through Santa Cruz could not compete in the market of Tesitana or Torocuco, being Jews and Moorish Franks. The Christians paying the same right that the King of Portugal charged his vessels, abusive taxes, bad treatment, and bribes, which the captains and custom officers of the said town of Santa Cruz do, resulted result in it being as populated a place. And they close it up. But she get those records from her documents, and it mentioned things that don't exist today. So you gotta go back and look for it. And I found a Toro Coco myself looking, and what I believe the Santa Cruz she talking about right there. And nearby, Toro Coco. But you got Toro Cuco, but they can't fool me. Because you got a street store nearby that called a Tesitan Road. But from this time period of this action to the time period now, I can imagine a lot of changes, a lot of walls and reconstruction, you know. But you can find what we call residual evidence left behind. That's just one small example of what I could be doing through the whole book. Research on top of research. The idea of writing a book started from doubt, as it happened with most of the research works. I was able to verify that in 1463, Enrique IV spoke that certain lands and fisheries had been discovered from Cabo de Aguirre and Agadir to Cabo de Bojador, both located in the south of Morocco. However, it is not possible that these territories, which were known since ancient times, could be discovered. This was completed by listing the wealth that these new lands contain, fifth of moors, leasing of pastures, and what will be fished in said rivers and fisheries. See, we talk about moors in America at that time, but the place names in Morocco, so it's not a story fit in your mind when you read these stories in books about 1463 and Agadir dealing with Moors. The fact that Agadir over there now makes sense to you now, but you're wrong. For 5,000 years, nothing has flowed in those places except a few modern winter streams. So, talk about fisheries and rivers. And it ain't as much over there as in the South American lands. And we've been reading from this book earlier, starting out. These right here. It's a book called Deeper Roots. He goes real deep into all the evidence he could find about the Islamic presence in America before Columbus. And I have to translate that too, but it is an English version out. Just can't find it. So here you can see, you got the Aztec Inca Empire. We got the Spanish settlement, we got the Portuguese settlement, just to keep showing you that the story, even the popular version, talks about these things, just don't give you the details, and they leave out the Moors. And that part in the middle, it ran by the Sharif late into the game. So even the empire ain't still been ran by Moors. Even after people believe 1492 been the end, but that was just the beginning. And even in these lands, you still got Moors who running things. They just that Castile and Portugal make their own maps now. They register anything. Terra Firma popping up on their maps and stuff like that. But you got most who probably from here, and they ain't even paying these people no attention, living it up with his own maps that say different things. That's how we gotta go back to decade. You look at the different industries, gold, And Minas, the mine, gonna have gold, the river of gold and slaves, and all the sugar plantations, You see, the Florida. It's another book. The subject really enjoys great importance and abuses of a lot of interest. And I myself began to, that's what I'm talking, interested since I live in the United States, as the Americans themselves say, is the story of the winners. The story of the rankers. That is, when we hear it said that Christopher Columbus discovered America, if it had not been for the fact that after that discovery, the Europeans obtained hegemony over the New World, hegemony, the history of the discovery of America by Europeans would have been a fairy tale, since in reality it was not Columbus who discovered America, but many civilizations already knew it before, especially Muslim civilizations. He continues, I present my theory for three bibliographic references. The first referred to the book of great importance, and that is about to be published in the same book we just finished talking about, Africa versus America. He used that as a reference in his book. So you don't gotta read that really. That's just some background information on her. Her family been sovereigns of Spain and generals of the Spanish army, as well as rulers in Al-Andalus and admirals of the Spanish Navy. Now her ancestor was ruler over Granada for Isabel. That's how close she been to that action. Among her studies, he was interested in the presence of Islam in pre-Columbian America, since during the elaboration of the encyclopedia on the presence of Muslims in today's world, when talking about Muslims on the American continent, he found evidence that Muslims were in these lands before Columbus. Below, he reproduced in its entirety a talk given by Professor Ali Kitani at the Association of the Shurafa Kitani for Cooperation and Culture in October 2000, where he also cited the work of the historian Isabel Alvarez. So that's two different people citing her, an institution that preserves and gives access to the public to the largest private archive in Europe. And his work in favor of the spread of Islam earned him several death threats in Spain. Man. But the reason why, because it's the most important issue. The American land, you see all that's what at stake. All this industry at stake. So these videos is a threat to that. But they won't play with me though. Cause I am who I talking about right now. You see people making videos about Moors, but they don't even call themselves that. They think they something else in their head. So Spain gonna play with them. Any Christian, he come in any form. I've been baptized a million times. The land been baptized. Everything been reconstructed. That's what that is. Reconstructing in your mind. That's another book you can get. Drawings. You got some drawings in there. Everywhere they went, they had to deal with Moors. And he showed that, and he showed America, so-called Indian, and everything. He put that in there because that's the same story. In North America, the paint he draw, I think I got it in here. That's not real see another time. So this right here inside, I get the book. Well, that's what you call a Moorish headdress. But you can find this heritage all throughout America. By many Aztecs, Montezuma. As you know, they put Montezuma in the song of the Navy, the motto, from the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli, which is to see the extent of that empire and distance, according to them at that time. So that's what we stopped by in the last video. Basically talking about they've been dealing with deserts and Arabes in a place, and they go into where more greenlands and darker skinned people. Let's put it like that. We talk about Madeira, we talk about Azores and Bojador and Bronco and Palma and beyond. So beyond is Island Mar Arlendi. We talk about Ethiopia when they talk about Prester John. That means they're just talking about Ethiopia. It could have been a million Prester Johns because wherever they went, they talking about Africa or Ethiopia, based off, like we said earlier, the climate or the features of the land or how the people look or how the people speak and their culture. So you got India. You can find maps for India in Africa, in the middle of Africa, India. You can find maps with Mozambique in America and in Africa at the same time. You can search for Mozambique now over Colombia and they'll pop up. So what he said, they saw the desert shore give away to tropic green. They saw all the Arab traits fade away and Berber types succeeded by the genuine Negro, yet the intriguing course ran on and on, apparently forever. And they're supposed to be in our mind the Africa of today. But the dark ocean, that's the Atlantic at that time, called to the Moors, the Dark Sea. So you can find across the top parts of South America desert lands before you get into the green. From a long distance of a satellite, ain't hard to see, but you go close up, there's a desert and beaches all around. So you can see a lot of Wikipedia pages we talking about all early 1400s and 1300s wars between Muslim Christians on beaches and shit. They won't put all those stories in North Africa today because of the sand and beaches. In this book, History of Mexico, the author said, this is a curious method of solving a difficulty by whoever called Ethiopia America. We know on the contrary. So he's talking from a modern day perspective by he realizing when he read in history books that America is being called Ethiopia by some. That's what he realizing. That it was common among the authors of that century to give the name Ethiopia to any country inhabited by black men, quote unquote, and to call such men Ethiopians, so that the natural sense of the word of Fulgosio is that the French evil was brought from the equinoctial countries of Africa into Lusitanian Spain. We will get into that, or Portugal. Today, that's what we will deal with today, Lusitanian. But this we dare not take upon us to maintain unless we have made more inquiries. But what he really getting into is that Africa and Portugal story go back farther, but he also deal with America. He's dealing, are we confused because Portugal been naming almost any place where they find dark-skinned people, Ethiopia or Africa. So we got Himiko, the navigator, explorer who lived during the 6th or the 5th century, a period of time where Carthage was significant sway over the neighboring regions. And they say he did a lot of navigation, but we go pay attention to these people who they call the navigator, because that means I think that's when they know they came to America. Little is known of Himliko herself. Himliko sailed north along the Atlantic coast from the Iberian Peninsula to the British Isles. He traveled to northwestern France as well as the territory of the Ostromini tribe living in Portugal. You see, the British Isles, France, which is the ports, Dieppe and or Normandy, and you got many ports up there. You got seaports all around the Mediterranean. These Carthaginians and Phoenicians been set up since ancient times and already dealing with America. Like in order to trade for tin to be used for making bronze and other precious metal. Records of the voyages of Himliko also mention the islands of Albion and learn Arwenius asserts that the outward journey to the West Streaminess took the Carthaginians 4 months. So you know you're dealing with a long travel. Himliko was not, according to Arwenius, the first to sail northern Atlantic Ocean. According to Arwenius, Himliko followed the trade route used by the Tartessians off the southern Iberia. Handle the navigator. You see, all of them gonna have the name navigator, but they all gonna get taken to Africa. Or some else they gonna keep them away from America because they won't give Columbus that. So Hannon was a Carthaginian explorer of the 1st century, best known for his naval exploration of the west coast of Africa. The only source of the voyage is a Greek periplus. According to some modern analysis of this route, Hannon expedition could have reached as far south as Gabon. However, others have taken him no further than southern Morocco, and others have taken him all the way to Mexico, which would be Cabo Bojador, Cape Nam to the Cape Nam and the Cabo Bojador, back around the Senegal River, which is the Magdalena. And that's why we got the Bay of Carthage right there, and Carthago and Kataski and all that right there. And the purple dye made in Guayaquil, so that they can even further into America. Guayaquil, but you could find all over the Caribbean. But the best purples in the world was the Guayaquil. Purple dyes. Prince Henry the Navigator, another navigator, was a central figure in the early days of Portuguese Empire, and in the 15th century European maritime discoveries and maritime expansion through administration direction. He regarded the main initiator of what will be known as the Age of Discovery. So he's the most important cat to deal with. So but they give him the same navigation as Hanno to Ghana and back to Portugal, and a couple of islands in the middle of the ocean. But this Lusitanian, we got the Kingdom of Leon, Navarre, Castile, which became Castile right there. It's in the old days. But you see, they already had ports up in the Austrias. See the Alvilas, the Alves. And they may even call the most western port beyond. You got products. Products were coming through from America. You got when you come down the Reconquista, Leon, come down the side. That became Portugal, and Castillo come down the side, which became Castillo. And Aragon come down on the side and merge with Castillo, became Spain. We got Spain and Portugal today. You got Barcelona. But all these ports are already important in world trade. You see Tangier, Ceuta. Very important ports dealing with American history. The port of Cadiz and the city of Medina Sidonia is where she is the Duchess of. Her in this book. She could get into a lot more in a minute. Right now, Strabo collects from Homer all the navigators called the regions Ethiopian, which they reach last in their navigation. The Ethiopians who live on the shore of the ocean are the furthest away. The Ethiopians, quote unquote, who are divided in two, resides somewhere Hyperion is placed, which is Hesperion. Others where it leaves. So it means where the sun set and the sun rise and set on the other side. Basically in the ocean, you got the sun coming from off the horizon to your left, which is America, and setting in the east, which from the Atlantic, which would be Africa. Ethiopians live on shores of the ocean on both sides of it, from Levant to Poniente. And that's what the Moors used to call themselves on this side, Ponientalis Maris, or just to separate themselves from the Moors on the other side as Orientalis Maris. And documents. There are two groups and are divided into by the ocean, and these different quotes from old Roman texts. So that's why they're using Africa and Ethiopia, those terms. Latin. Throughout the entire inhabited world. So basically Strabo took the whole world of where people were man at and looked at the people there as Ethiopian. So he didn't only just use American Africa, he also used Asia. We have the Moluccas and the islands of Malaya, as also as Ethiopian. So like modern blacks, they resided on the west coast of Africa and the east of America. Leaving Columbus on the first island discovered, Martin Alonso Pinzon sailed 200 leagues to the southeast to Hispaniola, a band against Hatia. In Paria, Columbus did not discover in Tierra Firme what they say, Asians. So-called Asians. From Jamaica to Veragua, he continued south and southeast. So let's get into a little bit more. Our so-called Africans, Americans, Afro-Americans of America, as they call them today. So in the book, she give out some of the documents facsimile of a true copy. And this is the Al-Laba document. Is a very important one. That's why I put this one. It's even hard to translate it because the way the language is so old. But in it, they talking about the Mogador. They're talking about the fisheries and the beaches and the seas and the rivers that let us know we're talking about a different Mogador than the North Africa one. But they talk about Fuths and Moors. And the Futh of Moors, that means basically they're at war and the captives, just get into your so-called enslavement. So basically, they've been setting up, when you see the Portugal, they've been setting up things like a factoria. We talk about that a good bit, but now I'm going to show you what it really is. See, factoria, factories, meaning to do. I say what the common name during the medieval and early modern eras for an entropic, which was essentially an early form of free trade zone or transshipment point. So basically, that's all these countries are. That's all countries came out as companies, starting off as these companies like factories. So at a factory, local inhabitants could interact with foreign merchants, often known as factors. First established in Europe, factories eventually spread to many other parts of the world. That's what we were saying up on the North Coast at first. Started to set up factories. And in North America, we got the Virginia Company and all those started out as factories. Trade zones. Trade and commerce, that's what it's always about. You got a factory, Elmina, the most infamous. Like we talked about earlier, you got the copper mines, the fur trade, the silver mines, and the bronze and stuff like that, the raw material coming out the country, you see coming out here. And you got stuff coming in, you got different stuff coming in and coming out. Since Carthage, and using the streets of Gibraltar, it's already going on. We were part of what we exported to Britain, Gaul, North America, and West Africa. That's what I say. The entire Atlantic Ocean been our playground. We've been setting up these factories, quote unquote, all over the ancient world. These star forts and stuff like that you see everywhere. This was the inheritance of Columbus. He might as well only much be a part of the history no more. He's irrelevant. While he been on the seas coming, you had people coming from here, going over to the other side, and coming from that side to the side while he been coming. That's how irrelevant that story is. That been created. That understanding and thinking by stuff like this. They're the only one he bring across. Everybody else, they make them hug to come across and say, nah, turn around. Nah, just go. Especially the Portuguese, they play them. But the Portuguese agree to the doctrine of discovery, which is a doctrine. And the record books using names that the modern day Canaries, the modern day West Africa, the modern day Ghanas, and those islands, Azores, and stuff like that. The record books mention those things, but what they don't know is those been names that been over here. We'll get into that. So they trying to reconstruct, they're trying to construct the history using old records, but being so liberal to the point with it as if they knew, they had time machines that actually knew exactly what was going on. You see, they get Portugal the main of all that based off old stories dealing with Kehuda and Tangiers, what they believe been right there at all times. Even though it was, but not at all times. So Cabo Deserto, Henry the Navigator gained the deserts to granted the desert to the order of Christ to Punta Triestao with a license to export salt. Like I said earlier, that's all about trade. And people gotta realize that we see big churches and stuff everywhere in America. These things come from somewhere. Nobody won't go look into it. And that's where we put the Cabo Desertos, right on the border of Texas and Mexico. So you can look there and see of salt mines there. Got a Matamoros right there next to it in Mexico. And what they call Maps New Leon. So that go right that coincide with it, with the story. Prince Henry the Navigator come out of the Portugal, which is the Leon. And you'll see later how Philip II, when he get control of the whole peninsula, how he started using these same areas to do stuff with. So we got two maps that got away that shouldn't exist, basically. And this one right here is the Juan de la Cosa map. And the map is a 1500s map, so you shouldn't in 8 years have a map of you got South America, you got the middle, and you got North America already in the 1500s on the map. They tried to destroy all the maps, but this one of the maps that they ain't get destroyed. Then another map show up in the 1513, and you already got a castle in Central America. So according to the research, when we see Fez, we see the area where these ports became important in world trade, so important in world trade that they affect where products were coming from here, that coming into here, they get distributed throughout the rest of the world. And Tangier and Keuda been those two into Tehuan. So you had those same things, but you had these kingdoms connected. I didn't even really see Portugal did most of the working with them. Because you see most of this Portugal were popularized. Christian history gonna tell us the Portugal territory, right? Castile on the other side. Basically been the whole continent connected with this trade, but we only dealing with Fez, the kingdom of Fez. As we can see on the Juan de Costa map, you're going to see the Portuguese and Castile, Lusitanian territories as they seen it. You see Gomera, Canarias, Rio Esclavo, Herrero, Cabo Aguirre, Madeira, Canaria, Tierra Firme, Cabo Verde, Santa Cruz. That's before Columbus come to basically baptize it, change it to something else. What he just used Tierra Firme for most. But this Portuguese, you can tell from the word Madeira. Sound right there. Anyway, she said the blacks, so-called blacks, been on the coastline. She really talking about the entire continent, but definitely in this area. Territorio Negro. Definitely the entire islands. But mostly the coastline because controlling the trade at this time in the world, controlling the rubberways, canals, and waterways. We're gonna see even in the 1600s, mid 1600s, still going on like that. Maybe you see the Dutch come, start painting every place they went. All you see is Moors on boats everywhere, so-called blacks. And you got Nicaragua, which I believe means land of blacks, or country of blacks. If you go inside here, you'll find plenty of places that say stuff like Ghana and Congo. When they go into a forest, a deep forest, they'll name things like Congo. On the Canary Islands, which coincides with this, that's been known as part of Canaries, took the steel. So you get some of the same place names on the modern day Canaries, but you see the land of blacks, Neguaria. Those words are just like the word Ethiopia, which just means land of blacks and land. So Rome gonna have these names. Nicaragua, and Neguaria. And you got a Nigeria, which is Nigeria. And you got Ethiopia, of course. Nigeria, Nicaragua, I know I'm missing some, but Rome had a lot of those type of names. So to the east of Nicaragua, you get into Gran Canaria and La Palmas, Telde. So on the other side, to the east of Nicaragua, the land of blacks, you get into Colombia, which is Gran Canaria. Then you get into Panama, but you get into Gran Canaria. So in the Dutch colony, they've been drawing what they found in South America. They've been in the war, and this one when you read it, sometimes got like a little description of way, and most of them read the book, and they've been in the war and they get expelled. The ones who don't want to capitulate. We got old Mexico, Wetus, Mexico. Same thing. Got the Spaniards, and that's why the Dutch. It's a seaport town. Look at all the waterways everywhere, canals. Portus Acapulco. Carolina, Fort Carolina. And then Moors on the ship and everything at the boats. And no matter which one of these pictures they find, it's the same things. Potosi. Got the windmill, which outpowered the whole community in those days. course, you know, you gotta know how to do all those things. You just use your industry over time. But you still have to work the farm. The management change, but the work will stay the same. But again, some other peoples come and fight for this labor too. And today we got industries by our peoples. This is New Mexico. All and Mexico. And the Spanish village in Florida. The Spanish come to collect their money. Come to collect their money. So we'll start after they start right here and start on the next one. Continue. Castle Tenidos. So start right there. Till next one.